Antonio's Story, Legacy of the Fallen, by Charles Olson. Chapter 18, Dulcinea. The sun was a hammer overhead. Antonio and Mano trudged along the narrow shoulder of the highway, their packs digging into sweat-soaked backs. The cracked, scorched pavement felt endless beneath their boots, and the relentless noise of traffic formed a continuous, metallic roar. Trucks thundered past in convoys, blaring horns but never slowing down. "We look like we just robbed a garbage truck," Mano muttered, swatting a persistent fly from his cheek. Antonio squinted at the horizon, his expression hardening. Good. That means they'll leave us alone. They'd already covered 7 brutal miles since abandoning the Chevette. The first 5 had been bearable. The last 2 felt like punishment. Mano's lips cracked from dehydration, his movements sluggish. Antonio's eyes remained fixed on the distant Pemex truck stop sign, shimmering in the oppressive heat. They no longer spoke. They just walked. The Pemex station loomed across a 6-lane divided highway, a frenzied rush of speeding cars and trucks forming an almost impenetrable barrier. Antonio halted abruptly. "This is a bad idea." Mano flashed a wild grin. "Yeah, let's do it anyway." They paused, assessing the rapid flow of vehicles, then surged forward. Sprinting across 3 lanes, dodging a pickup that missed them by inches, they leaped the divider and scrambled across the final stretch, breathing heavily as headlights bore down on them. The cold blast of air conditioning inside the mini-mart felt almost sacred. Antonio and Mano stumbled toward the refrigerated section, immediately guzzling bottles of water in silence. Sweat pooled around their boots on the polished tiles. "I can taste colors," Mano rasped, eyes closed in relief. They grabbed unappealing gas station tamales and stale tacos, collapsing at a sticky plastic table near the window. Mano sniffed his taco theatrically. Notes of despair with an aftertaste of regret. Antonio grimaced, chewing tentatively. "Mine's cardboard. Maybe soap." Their laughter erupted uncontrollably, echoing around the empty store. It felt necessary, cathartic. At the register later, a young woman, 22, playful eyes, a charming gap between her front teeth, flirted openly with Mano as she rang up their snacks. "You talk like an old man," she teased, laughing easily at his jokes. Antonio discreetly turned away, feigning interest in a rack of chips as Mano followed her giggling into an aisle. Antonio wandered into a side room filled with ancient slot machines, their lights dimly glowing. He dropped a handful of coins from his pocket into one, pressing the button absent-mindedly. Bells rang. Lights flashed. 1,000 pesos poured out of the machine. He stared, momentarily stunned. "Well," he murmured quietly, "that's new." He glanced around the empty room, then pocketed the winnings with a satisfied smile. Mano reappeared 20 minutes later, hair disheveled, a smug grin plastered across his face. "You score?" Antonio asked dryly. "Shut up," Mano laughed, leaning in conspiratorially. "She found us a ride. Red Freightliner, white trailer, heading to Juárez at sunrise." Antonio straightened immediately. "Let's make a good impression." The red Freightliner, gleaming brightly under the golden hour sun, sat parked at the far edge of the lot. Antonio knocked firmly on the driver's side door. The truck shifted slightly, then a gruff voice called out, muffled. "¿Quién es?" "Mireya sent us," Antonio replied clearly. "About Juárez?" After a moment, a small window slid open, revealing Miguel Rodriguez, shirtless, cigarette dangling, eyes bleary but amused. "What can I do for you, gentlemen?" Antonio smiled politely. "I'm Antonio. This is Mano. We respectfully request passage to Juárez." Miguel chuckled, skeptical. 800 pesos. Without hesitation, Antonio produced the exact amount from his winnings, handing it forward calmly. Miguel blinked, then laughed heartily. "My name's Miguel Rodriguez, and this," he slapped the dashboard affectionately, "is Dulcinea. Climb aboard." Dulcinea. The horizon blushed pink as dawn broke over the Pemex station. Dulcinea roared to life, spewing exhaust and shuddering awake like a dragon disturbed from slumber. Antonio and Mono climbed into the cab, exhausted yet alert. Miguel, yawning and lighting another cigarette, glanced over. "Hope you boys sleep light. I drive fast. Rarely stop." Antonio nodded, smiling faintly. "We're used to it." The 12-hour drive toward Gomez Palacio proved grueling. Dulcinea's air suspension was leaking, causing the truck to bounce and sway unpredictably over every pothole and bump in the road. Still, the landscape offered a stark beauty that momentarily distracted them. The vast, arid plains punctuated by distant mountains, the sun casting long shadows over fields of agave and cactus. Small villages drifted past their windows, clusters of pastel-colored houses, sleepy plazas, and weathered faces that watched curiously as the truck rumbled by. The constant jostling, combined with the relentless need for a restroom, added a comical urgency to their journey, turning each passing mile into an endurance test. 12 hours later, beneath a night sky strewn with stars, Dulcinea pulled into Gomez Palacio. Miguel parked at another dusty Pemex, its flickering neon sign barely illuminating the gravel lot. Antonio and Mono dashed from the cab toward the grimy restroom, desperate for relief. "I could spell my name with this stream," Mono joked, sighing contentedly. Antonio snorted, tension dissolving. Olympic talent right there. Their laughter filled the tiny, decrepit space, echoing against peeling paint and cracked tiles. Inside the mini-mart, Antonio filled a gallon jug of water, instructing Mono bluntly, "Dump it. Keep the jug. One toilet won't suffice." Mono nodded gravely. Adapt or die. Returning outside, Miguel leaned casually against the store counter, shirtless and smiling at the attendant. Antonio and Mono waited by Dulcinea, watching traffic flicker past in the cool night. Miguel reappeared, yawning, rebuttoning his shirt lazily. "You don't need to sleep outside tonight. Got some couches in the trailer." Inside the truck, dusty plastic-wrapped furniture sat secured by cargo straps. Mono immediately claimed one, sprawling comfortably. Antonio sank onto another, relieved. Miguel's voice drifted in through the cracked door. "Don't latch it. Stay alert. If anything happens, run fast." The doors closed, plunging them into darkness. "Juárez," Mono whispered into the shadows. "A fresh start. Maybe our own crew someday." Antonio's voice was steady, determined. "It starts here," Mono smiled unseen. "Ready to be somebody?" Antonio breathed quietly, his resolve firm. "I've always been somebody. They just haven't met me yet." They drifted off in silence, sleep claiming them quickly. Antonio's dreams came violently. Smoke-filled nightmares punctuated by the scent of gasoline and the crackle of flames. He stood frozen, helpless, watching his mother's apartment burn, flames roaring, consuming everything. He saw her face twisted in agony, heard her desperate cries swallowed by fire. A shadow loomed, enormous and menacing, the skull, eyes cold, expressionless, stalking Antonio relentlessly through the collapsing inferno. Antonio turned, running desperately through smoke-choked corridors, walls collapsing around him. Suddenly, Amado appeared, pale and battered, lying on a hospital bed. His voice strained, urgent. "Run, Antonio! You have to run!" Antonio woke abruptly, heart hammering, sweat drenching his skin, the echoes of Amado's warning fading into the darkened trailer. At sunrise, Miguel banged loudly on the trailer doors, jolting them awake. "Rise and shine!" They climbed into the cab once more, grateful but weary. Dulcinea thundered north, the desert painted gold by the rising sun. By noon, Juárez appeared, a city of dust and dreams, rough but alive. Dulcinea halted at the edge of town, brakes hissing. Miguel turned. "End of the road, boys. Be careful. Juárez doesn't forgive." Mono grinned fiercely. "Good thing we bite back." Antonio shook Miguel's hand warmly. "Gracias, Miguel. You saved us days." Miguel nodded, watching as they strode confidently toward the sprawling, dangerous city that awaited. Beneath their boots, the desert dirt felt like the threshold to something new, dangerous, and vital. They were ready.